Okay, our Hangout on air is live. Breakage Saturday. My background today is kind of fun. That's where I was live in studio with that fellow up there on stage, and his name is now, Len Safko. He is one of the social media gurus and has written a number of books, one of the big Bibles on social media. And so I was in the Channel 8 studios here in town, public television. That was kind of fun to be there. I was in the front row, actually, and got a client out of that one, too. This happened to be sitting next to me. So I kind of go around with my client head on, I guess, all the time and sat next to a lady who's a high-level MLM marketer. And we ended up having a conversation, and I ended up being able to teach her her downline, some of the very strategies we talk about in speed to profit marketing. But anyway, that was a great event. Len there, right behind my right ear, was a great speaker that night and talked about a book that he had, and then they had several other experts that talked as well. Len was by far the best. The others were, pretty good. But anyway, so it was a very enjoyable evening, and it was fun to be invited to the exclusive filming and to be there on in the studio audience. So that was just happened a few months ago. It was actually the first PBS special that had ever been done on anything about social media. So it was kind of fun. One of the interesting things that Len talked about was Second Life, and I hadn't actually really heard about much till then, and when I had heard about it, I thought it was some time-wasting nonsense. He has a whole community in Second Life, and he actually teaches class in there as this avatar person that he is, and he makes money in there. And so he said, yes, everything about Second Life is pretending except the cash is real. So he teaches classes in a university classroom, I guess, that they've created in there. And at the time, I thought, I got to go see the Second Life. And, of course, 6 months have gone by, and I haven't done it. But as I've got too many other things to do, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I have kind of, Joy, I think, created herself a character in there and went wandering around some hallways and checked out whatever happens in there. I don't really know. It looked kind of creepy to me at first, but after I heard Len's talk, I thought, I guess it's whatever you make out of it. So today we're going to talk about Break the Cage. This is part 5 of the 5-part series. The first thing I have to do, I can't not do it, is talk about this successful book challenge we had this week. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, Mark says it's like the real world. Yep, they trade on the stock market with virtual trading and stuff. Yeah, I guess he gets paid real money in there to do real stuff with people who are in there as their avatars. So cool. I probably ought to go open a class in marketing in virtual world. But anyway, we finished a 2-day book challenge this week. We have several first-time authors now done. Every single person. The night before, we do a warm-up call the night before, and then the 2 days, which was Tuesday and Wednesday this week, everybody is like, oh, no, can I really do this? And, oh, I had some technical problems getting on, and, oh, I'm behind everybody, oh, no. And every single person, I work with everybody individually, hang on, I had to do that. Every 2 hours, we do a check-in, and everybody will go away, and I'll work with somebody afterwards to get them caught up, and everybody tuned up, and everybody won. And it was just spectacular. It was so much fun to get these authors done. And I actually worked too. I ended up with several interruptions, so it messed up my timing. It didn't affect the calls of the group. I fit them around that, so I didn't quite get done with the book. And on top of that, I hadn't even figured out what book I was going to write during that challenge until a few days before. So it turned out to be more of a colossus. Normally, I'm aiming at like a 120-page book to get done in those 2 days, and that's what the others are writing. One of them might be a little longer. Mine's going to be probably 30,000 words, which is going to be a bit more than 120 pages. But it is progressing very nicely. What I was so excited about was I got the complete, according to the sort of method that I use, the complete multi-page outline done so that it's easy just to dictate and flow through. The only issue for me is just finding the blocks of time to finish it. So it will be done very quickly, and I am so excited because it is so powerful and such a key to my own success. So it is quite personal. And I had planned on writing the book at some point, but I hadn't planned on writing it now. So you'll see that. I'm intentionally not revealing all of the specifics about the book. You'll see that coming forward in the next few days. So stay tuned to Facebook and everywhere else you spy on me and stalk me, if you do. And if you don't, I guess you won't find out. All right, so today we're doing part 5 of this series of Break the Cage, and this is the psychology. I called it about, what did I call it today? How to get your head, no, your heart in the game, and I had, the head was supposed to be crossed out. So the first 4 pieces we did was, number 1, get your objectives, your goals really clear. That was like a month ago. Number 2 was, okay, now that you know exactly, specifically, precisely where you want to go, what are you going to do? What are the actions that you can take? And those are, you know, breaking down goals, 90-day, 60-day, 30-day, weekly. What do I do today? I always use the example of, if you can't see your 90-day goals through the lens of your daily activities, you're doing the wrong stuff, or you have the wrong goals. You can start out, and I do, as long as 3 years, 1 year, 90, 60, you know, and then 30 and down to a week. I got a friend of mine who's a master at this, Daryl Eves. He's the guy that runs the YouTube domination things, and he's been hired by a whole bunch of Fortune 500 companies, and probably is the world's best YouTube guru, if I'm actually bold enough to say that. He's got over 1 billion views, 1 billion plus for his clients, and had made some big money personally, and is a Fortune 500 advisor and advises entire departments of YouTube people, certified by YouTube, and he's a friend of mine, and he's a lot of fun to be around anyway, too. So, strategizing your actions, that's goals. The third one is, and I can't remember which order I did this in, but I think the third one is picking up the skills you need. That was either third or fourth, but whatever. Is, all right, now that I know the goals are specifically and what I have to do to get there, gee, am I missing some skills? Do I have to learn how to, you know, knit if I'm making an Afghan, which I don't, but if I were? Then do I need to do that? Yeah, I got a skill I've got to pick up. I need to learn to do, guess what? Storytelling. Wow, I need to be able to talk in front of people. I need to pick up the skill of being in front of the camera without freaking out, freezing up. Whew. The fourth one was optimizing your environment, or cleaning up your environment, or getting rid of or adding things to your environment that are conducive to your objectives. That can be things. It can be work habits. It can be people. If your life is full of naysayers, you can't do this, you douchebag kind of people, you may want to get rid of some of those, or limit their contact with you, or regulate it in a way that it doesn't get in your way and keep you from doing the things that you know that you should do. So in optimizing or correcting or building or making more powerful your environment is one of the key things. So pick up the skills is number 3, fixing your environment is number 4, and today is the last one, which Christian Michelson calls mastering the psychology, which is getting your head fixed. Okay, and I saved this one for last for a very simple reason. It is often the most important. It is also often the most difficult. The others are things you do. This is who you are. Okay? I can figure out some goals out there. Okay, I want to do that. I want to have my monthly income be $40,000 a month, and I want to have that in 6 months. Or I want to have that in 12 months. In 12 months, I want to be at $40K a month. Okay. And in order to do that, and here's where the money's going to come from. It's going to come from, let's talk about me, group coaching program. It's going to come from some private coaching clients. It's going to come from residual income for products that I have online and some speaking. And then I sit down and specifically, and I've done this so it's easy to do, specifically say I want to have this much from each thing. Okay, and I want to have it by this day. Here's where I am today in all of those categories. So then it's clear, and I need to, here's some milestones. You know, 6-month milestones or 3-month milestones. Here's already what's going on. Here's the feelers I've got out for speaking gigs and for stage appearances. Here are the products I've got under development. Here are the clients that I already have. You know, so I get a sense of where I am in relation to that. All right, what do I need to do? What's working now? You know, and that's things we've already covered in the other ones. Then I look at my skills. Well, what hasn't been working? Is it because I don't know how to do something, or I do it poorly? Remember my saying, do it and suck less, and do it and be good at it. So are there something I need to practice? and get better at. I need to change the approach I have when I do video, or say different things, or I need to study my avatar language a little more, connect a little more with them, or whatever it is, right? Then my environment. Environment for me is sometimes software, sometimes it is, that's also a tool, but not a skill. We talked about the difference between tools and skills. My environment can also be, what's my getting up habits? When do I do my work? When do I do my best work? You know, morning, night, whatever it is. Have I got too many distractions? A while ago, Joy and I were very, very active in the museum here in town, and we're still members. The Herd Museum, and we're both trained as docents, but for the last little while we've had to tone that down a little bit as we build the business. And so making those kinds of trades for a little while is something that you do. Okay, and we've just recently determined we're going to open an international office in Edmonton pretty quick, probably toward the end of this year, very end, or first part of next year. And that's because we've got some international clients, and we've got a lot of family up there, and we're just going to run it from 2 places. Okay, so that's another environmental consideration. The last one is mastering the psychology, or getting your head in the game. And that is the barriers and blocks. The I suck, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I will fail, they will hate me. And all of that whole set of barriers that get in our way. So one of the best descriptions of that I have ever seen is a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Yeah, Gay Hendricks is a guy, he works at Stanford, he's a psychologist. If you haven't read that book, read it. It's an easy read, and it's brilliantly done, and he talks about what he calls the zone of genius. The zone of genius is the place where you effortlessly create the most value, where you do the coolest stuff. Now, before I get launched into here too much, I always give space for people to talk. So I've given a lengthy recap of the first 4 weeks to set the stage for mastering the psychology that we're talking about now. And I see we've got Rick and Mark and Joy on. Anybody want to add something, say something, or throw something?
Just here to learn this morning, Kellan. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Are you on late shift? Are you tired this morning?
I have a week off, so some of the things that you're talking about in trying to get your goals and all that stuff is resonating with me right now, because I need to get that started when I get out of work. So my head's in a different space right now, and I'm here on a Saturday morning, which I normally wouldn't be. I appreciate it.
I'm glad you're here. Thanks for showing up, buddy. Okay. Anybody else? Comments about what we've said? Okay. Nothing? Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Being dense as I am, I will, if it fits with what you're going to talk about, would you please also circle back around to the thought about when you have your plan about how you're going to work this out, how do you reevaluate from time to time and decide, is the way I have my time divided among these things the smart thing to do? Should I reorganize it a little bit? I know you've talked about this in the past, but if you care to address it again or refer me back.
Yeah, that's fine. So you're a little soft today. You might want to pull the mic just a little closer or turn up the gain just a small. You're not as loud as you normally are. Okay, so he's talking about reevaluating your goals, not your goals, but your priorities. And so the simple way is this, and so I'll talk about it really quickly, and then we'll get back to the topic. It's this. If I have 30-day goals, or a weekly goal on the way to a 30-day benchmark for my 90-day goals. I'm going to be here in 90 days, and in order to do that, I've got to be here in 30. If I get done with the week, and I'm looking at my 30-day benchmark, and I'm saying, you know what, I'm not moving like I thought I would toward that, and there's 2 possibilities. One, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. That's a different problem. If somebody died, then you got excuses. But if you didn't do what you said you were going to do, and you think, if I did what I said I was going to do, I would be there, okay, fine, then you give it the program. But if, in fact, you did what you said you were going to do, and you really didn't move toward that 30-day benchmark for your 90-day goals, and I'm assuming you're still married to the 90-day goal, and that's really where you want to be, okay, then you say, is there a more effective way to do that? Should I adjust my time? I look at my day in blocks of like 2 hours and sometimes 4. I don't do them all at the same time, but I say, you know, if I put 4 hours into this product creation, I should be able to get this much done today. And I usually do 50-10, so I'll do 50 hard minutes and then, you know, take a break for 10. But if I put 4 blocks, 4 blocks, and I talk about them in blocks. I put 4 blocks into creating product today, 3 blocks into writing the book that I'm writing, and 3 blocks into working on the album. That's 6-10 hours. Okay, and I have 3 coaching calls, and that's 13. I probably can't do that. I got to eat and do some other stuff. All right, so I can only do this. All right, so I organize my day, and then I run my week. And if at the end of the week I'm saying, you know, I'm not on track, then that's the key for me to reevaluate my day, my blocks. And the other thing that gets in the way for me, and does for many people that I talk to, is I let too many external things get in the way. So when I look back at what I actually did with my day, well, I spent these 2 hours piddling around checking latest updates on software, or making too many comments on Facebook, or messing around, and consequently that cut this hour and this hour out. And then, did I get a new lead from Facebook, private messaging, or stuff like that? Was it worth it? Was it a good trade? Oh, you know, I don't think I'll make that trade again. Okay, and it doesn't involve any flogging or, you know, self-flagellation. It just involves an evaluation of, did the time I spend move me appropriately toward that weekly benchmark, 30-day benchmark? And if it doesn't, then say, what else can I do? What else can I do, or how could I do it differently? And it may be a matter of reprioritizing what you do, and that's why I say when we've talked about doing the benchmark things, or the 3 important things first on that day, and then the rest is extra credit. All right, so that's all we can do on that today. I've got to move to the topic for today. So I've put head versus heart as the number 1. Our head is, and I put it that way, you know, it's not the only way to describe it, but our head is often a helper and often a barrier. Okay, the head is where we think of all the reasons not to do something. So let me give you an example. I'm going to get in shape. Okay, get up, go work out. Oh, first day, second day, third day. You know, I'm tired. I hurt. My body's telling me I should lighten up. And you know, I didn't check with my doctor. Maybe I should do that first. Maybe I don't want to do that, you know. And then 3, 4, 5, and then pretty soon it's gone. That happens. It happens a lot, and that's your thinking. Your heart, and what I mean by that is your emotional drive, says, I want to be in shape. I want to be able to run down to the store and back without passing out on the porch. I want to be able to play with the kids or the grandkids. I want to be able to do this. So I'm going to push through this. And the heart is where we often find the motivation to do things that the head finds excuses not to do. So the heart is where real commitment can come from, when you decide in your head, but then you agree in your heart that you're going to do something. So that's kind of why I talk about it that way. We can define head and heart different ways, and I'm not saying thorough and good analysis isn't appropriate. There is lots of analysis or paralysis by analysis when we want to make sure we do the right thing. You can't make sure you're doing the right thing. So get over that, okay? Mastering the psychology simply means doing or correcting all of those barriers that exist for us. Well, we can't correct a barrier, and this is why I talk about coaching all the time, commitment, clarity, and coaching, the 3 C's. That's why coaching is so important. It is often difficult for me to figure out what my barriers are. So, for example, that book, The Big Leap, when I read it, he talks about 4 things that create what we call an upper limit. And he defines literally everything in terms of an upper limit problem. Now, whether he's right or wrong doesn't even matter. It's a really useful framework, and I thought it had a great power. So what he says is, look, we achieve to a limit. That limit is established either by our previous experience, something that happened when we were kids, some story we have about money or success that says this is all we're good enough to have. This is all we're good for, boys, girls. This is it. Above that, neat. So as soon as we get up here, we get uncomfortable and we do something to ratchet it down again till we get back in our comfort zone. And he proposes 4 things that cause us to have those upper limits. One is, I am fundamentally flawed. I am not good enough to have this much success. That one was mine. I have a whole long story, and part of it's in the book that I'm writing, about where that came from, how it got reinforced, and what it's done to me during my life. Another one is, I'll be leaving people close to me behind. So I have a client who feels that way. This particular client came from a certain set of roots and family, and the feeling that this client has is if they go past that and achieve more notoriety, more money, they'll be leaving that milieu, and it's not okay because they're breaking solidarity with that. Another one is, my light will shine too bright. I can't be that much in attention. I gotta turn the volume down. It's not okay to be that bright. You know, and then there was another nuance, and I can't remember, so I'm not talking only about that book today. But he talked about 4 reasons that we get uncomfortable when we achieve things. So upper limit is certainly one of the reasons we turn down our efforts. We sabotage ourselves. We find a reason to be late or to delay production of product or services, or get scared when we talk about pricing, or, you know, what the investment is for someone to you know, take advantage of our products and services. So the first thing that's critical. So number one, if you're writing things down, you got to figure out what your limits are. What is it that makes you waste time? What is it that makes you be lazy? What excuses? What's the dialogue that goes on in your head when you're making excuses to not do the stuff you said yesterday or last week you were going to do? What is that dialogue? Second, what are the feelings? Where are they? Am I angry? Am I scared? Is it fear of the unknown? Is it fear of failure? Someone's going to ridicule me? I'm comfortable where I am, so I don't want to step out in the dark. Nobody that I know has ever done this before. Who am I to think I can do it? What are the feelings that keep us from moving? So that's the next thing. What do they feel like? And then there are tools and processes that I teach to deal with those feelings. But the first thing is to isolate them, meaning figure out what they are. What is the language? What are the dialogues? Write those down. And then depending on what they are, okay, figure out what the right process is to get rid of them, because they are blocking you. They are stopping you. So one of the, let's talk about a common one. I'll use me for an example. A common one is, I'm not good enough to have that. Someone else might be, you know, able to do that, but, you know, that's, I'm not, you know, I'm not worthy of that kind of feeling. Okay, so I'm familiar with that because when I was raised, perfection was the only standard. I was raised in a very strict religious home, and if you didn't do everything right, you weren't good enough. And there was not much ever praise for okay or for good effort. If it wasn't perfect, you suck kind of feeling. And so I you know, internalized that very powerfully and kept that. And so if something wasn't perfect, I didn't feel it was good enough, and I always had that sort of, I read an article about this the other day, the feeling that I'm a fraud, somehow I will be exposed, even though what I was doing was very successful. Somehow I was afraid that I would be found out. So that I don't know what, but it's just sort of that found out feeling, and they called it the experts something or other. I read an article about it the other day, and it was quite funny, actually. So apparently quite common, because somebody wrote an article in some magazine about it that I found online somewhere. Anyway, so then after you isolate those, you adopt an intentional plan, and part of your 30-day plan is to deal with that fear. So every time you feel it, you say, okay, I'm upper limiting. Turn that into a verb. Or, okay, I'm reacting out of fear. I'm, you know, this little self-sabotage. I know that voice. That's the, you know, that's the fear voice. And so when you start to shine a light on stuff like that, you start to be able to debunk it, to deal with it, to decide who's talking here. You know, is it your achievement-oriented self, or is it your, oh no, self, right? Another thing is called something that is called an emotional centering, or a peace process, is to figure out inside of you where the feeling is, because feelings in your body are just chemistry, right? They're just a chemical reaction to a thought. You have a thought, it creates some chemistry. That feeling in your body is a reaction to those hormones, that chemistry. And feelings have a shelf life. So if you get angry and you sit quietly for a minute, that anger dissipates. It's the chemistry is dissipating. Fear will dissipate. So focus on where that feeling is. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't fight with it. Don't do a dance. Just be with it. Relax and be with the feeling, and then it begins to dissipate. Don't just, sometimes you imagine yourself walking around it and looking at it. What color is it? How big is it? Is it pulsating? Is it moving? What's it doing? And you treat the feeling as an object. And what you find is that very quickly, in a minute, maybe less, sometimes a few minutes, if it's a really intense feeling, it begins to soften around the edges and go away. And that's the chemistry being metabolized. So feelings are chemistry, and that's okay. But know that the thought, feeling, action, path, I have a thought, I have a feeling, I take an action, then I have another thought about that action or feeling, and often we go thought, feeling, back and forth, and we end up doing nothing or taking action that's completely appropriate, like, I'm going to just turn on the TV and veg out because I don't really know what to do here. Right? And that is essentially deferring victory to the voice that says, not now, later. Right? All right, so that is a couple of thoughts on that. Feeding the fire. So before I get to feeding the fire, I want to find out if either Mark or Rick or Joy have anything to say, add, or throw into the mix. Hearing none, I will roll forward. Next is feeding the fire. So one of the things that you do back in the early stage, number one, when you figure out what your goals are, is you create what I call a compelling vision. A compelling vision is not, I want some more money in the bank, I'm going to have some more cash, I don't like this feeling of being up to here every month, drowning in the bills, I really would like to have extra money. Okay, great. That isn't a compelling vision, and it won't do anything for you, and I promise with that kind of an attitude, in a month or a year, you'll be where you are now. Instead, if you say, you know what, I want to have $40,000 a month coming into this bank account right here, ending in 685794273 or whatever bank number is, 40,000. I will know it because I will see these deposits. They will come from these places, and I will have happy customers. I will wake up and I will feel good. I will go check the sales of my products online. I will see 1 or 2 sales overnight, every night. I will be able to talk to my clients and they'll feel like they're making progress in whatever it is I coach. And that's, whatever the vision is. And then say, and when I have that, I will be able to feel this way. And I will be able to pay bills, and I won't have any credit card debt. And I'll be driving this car. In fact, oh, isn't that my car? There it is. I can see that car. And I can feel it if a car is your thing. I used to drive hot rods. I've had a couple of, I think 3, I guess, Dodge Vipers. And I had one of them souped up to 850 horsepower and then, of course, crashed that. But whatever. So you see the vision. You see it and feel it so that it is yours. And you own it. And so feeding the fire comes back to 2 things. It comes back to refreshing that vision. That's why some people talk about having vision boards. It's my house. That's my house. And you feed it that way. And the second way you feed the fire is in your mind. You go back and revisit the energizing ritual that you created around those barriers that you have. Or that, whatever they are, you work those out with your coach and you figure out, what are my barriers? Here is my ritual. Here is the things I will do to give me power. So you revisit your rituals and you revisit your goals to feed the fire. Okay? And another thing I do is I think about, because part of my goal is helping you guys that are on this call today and everyone else maximize their gifts and talents. So I regularly like to engage in conversations with my clients about their goals, because that fires me up. I can see you already doing X, Y, Z. And when I get my clients fired up about them seeing their goals, I get jazzed. So that's another way I feed the fire. So that's a piece about feeding the fire. I'm going to do one more and then open it up for conversation. Again, I lost my table of contents because my schedule popped up. All right, number 4 is eliminating blocks. Now, eliminating blocks sounds like an event. I eliminate them. That's a myth. If we've developed a block or a habit or a mental barrier over a period of years, for me it was a period of decades, you don't just go Okay, it's gone. Okay, that doesn't happen, at least not in my experience. After I understand what it is, there are some very clear rituals that I help with myself or help my clients create, or that I've gotten from coaches that I have had, to help me separate myself from those events. Those events had a certain barrier creating effect on me. They might not have on someone else, but they created a feeling for me. I need to separate myself emotionally from attachment to those barriers and from attachment to those events that led to the barriers. So after I figure out what they are, I reinterpret them in a new light. You know, that person said or did this 50 times or 100 times. And you know what? Maybe they didn't think or mean what I've assigned. What else could they have thought or meant? A lot of it had to do with how I was raised and how my mom talked and behaved. I interpreted it as a certain way as a kid. If I look at those behaviors as an adult, there are several other interpretations that I could have. There are several other interpretations that I could have. I thought that was a question. Several other interpretations that I can have, and I choose another one. And I choose another one, and I go through a ritual, which we don't have time to do in this Hangout because it's a longer process, to separate myself from those emotional triggers. And I figure out, what are the things that trigger me into laziness? What are the things that trigger me into fear? And some of mine have been very powerful emotional triggers that when they happen, they triggered some self-destructive behavior. Self-destructive behavior can be small. It can be like lazy, wasting a day. But if you do that very much, you've wasted 10 years. Okay, or it can be bigger self-destructive behavior, like when this happens, I get emotionally out of control and then I want to go drink. And then I get drunk, and then I act like an ass, and then people get upset, and then I have relationship work to do for a week. Oh, that's effective. Why do I keep doing that? I don't know. It just keeps happening. Well, wait a minute. What happened just before? What was going on the hour before, the day before? And you can figure out the triggers. I worked with a client not too long ago who had a very severe, heavy duty, and this is going to be public, so I'm not going to say what it was, substance addiction for a lengthy period of time. And by doing what I'm describing in a lengthy session, several hours, cold turkey, straight up, clean for a week, in rehab, clean to this day. So it can happen. I have done it, I have seen it, and creating the distance and the separation from those triggers and barriers is possible. And it is essential to break the cage, because as long as you are trapped by the barriers of not good enough, I can't do this, I have all these excuses and automatic emotional places I go of either fidgeting or going, exploring some more or researching some more or buying another BSO online or buying some more gear. I've done that in the studio, go buy gear that, I'd like to have, but I don't need right this minute. But the researching and buying of it was fun, and oh yeah, that took a couple days too. And so guess what? I didn't get something done. Sorry, my dog's having a cow in the background. So I've had to look at all those kinds of things. When I'm looking at tools or products, do I need this or is this lazy? Do I need this or is this just a fun diversion? Is this a BSO? Is this a tool or some piece of software in the studio I need right now? And if I do, what would I do different, and what would I do on a project or projects I'm working on right now with this? And if I can't really answer that hardcore, then the answer is, you know what, it's a distraction. Worry about it later. And then I set myself a goal. I'm going to get this done, and then I give myself permission to worry about it. Okay, cool. Then I have incentive to finish some, length of project or projects, and then I say, all right, now I get to have an hour to go play my research. Okay, cool. All those things are fine, but they're all different methods that we structure when we work with people to get them organized so that the barriers don't unintentionally block all progress. And this is why the mastering the psychology piece, or getting your head in the game, is so important. And barriers don't just evaporate. You have to create strategies to mitigate them. And eventually you create new neural pathways through the woods of your head so that you have new automatic reactions. Your automatic reactions, when something happens, that's those neural pathways that are worn. Your brain, thanks to new research, has always been capable of, but we used to think once a habit, you're dead. No, not true. You can create new habits intentionally. It's called new neural pathways, neuroplasticity, and all that cool stuff that lets you be a different person. You can change. An old dog can learn new tricks. And that's laboratory science. That's not Kellan blubbering. True and fact. And so creating that opportunity and reinforcing new ritual is the process of getting your head in the game for breaking the cage. All right, we've gone over today, which is okay. Let me open it up for comments, questions, or tomatoes for the last time here, and then we can all go about our Saturdays and do cool stuff. Anybody?
Not really, Kellan. You just, as usual, you just hit things on a resonance. It's kind of interesting the timing you've got, because right now I'm just going into this change of life routine that we're going to be getting into, and it's so much of it is exactly that, patterns of behavior and creating new mental pathways. You know, so I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank you, sir.
You betcha. That's what I do. I help people create those and get their goals. That's results on a rampage and break the cage and speed to profit and all the rest of them are really tied up in that, you know, the creation of success rituals to do the success coaching that people need, whatever the label of it, so that they can get the things, outrageous successes they want. So you're certainly welcome. Thank you for coming. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. And I guess the next thing is our private Monday one for those of you that are in that. And we will, oh, the other thing is the next book challenge is November 21st and 22nd. That's a Friday and Saturday. If you have written or ever wanted to write a book, I can help you get it done in 2 days. You're not seeing things. That's a 2 days. I just did it. I did it myself a month ago. I did it with some clients this week. We're going to do another one on November 21st and 22nd. If you're interested, go to www.speedtoprofitmarketing.com/book challenge. And there's some details there, and you can sign up, and I'd love to see you there. I had a new client sign up last night, so we've got people in the November one already, and I am psyched to get that going. So, all right, we'll end the broadcast here, and see you, some of you, on Monday.